Welcome to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge, your front row seat to the boldest ideas and smartest strategies in the marketing game. Your host is Reed Hansen, Chief Growth Officer at MarketSurge.
Hello and welcome back to Inside Marketing with MarketSurge. Today we've got an absolute heavyweight in the world of branding and differentiation. Let me emphasize that pronunciation. Someone who has shaped global brand stories for decades and continues to help companies rise above the noise. Barry Labov is a two-time Ernst & Young Entrepreneur of the Year, a keynote speaker, and the founder of Labov Marketing, Communications and Training, where he's helped iconic brands like Harley-Davidson, Audi, Mack Trucks, and the Macallan differentiate, innovate, and thrive. He's a number one new release in marketing on Amazon and has been requested by industry-leading universities like Cambridge, Stanford, and Chicago. Barry's been featured on more than 100 podcasts, and he's also has his own podcast, the Difference Talks podcast, as a co-host. He's interviewed top-tier thinkers like Seth Godin, Rebecca Hump, executives from Cadillac, Sweetwater, and so many more global brands. Today, we're diving into what Barry does best, helping companies truly stand out in a world where everyone looks, sounds, and markets the same. Barry, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Reed. I'm looking forward to this.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to start out and just play dumb. Why does differentiation even matter? Why don't you just do something well and be done with it? Why does a company or a brand need to be different?
Question. Today, more than ever, we are pressured to commoditize what we do so that we look like, taste like, smell like, and price like everybody else. And technology is urging us to do this. And the problem is when that happens, we lose. We, the brands, we, the people that create a product or a service, are the losers because we have to lower our prices. We lose the hearts and souls of our employees because no longer are they doing something of value. And then what happens as that all goes downhill, we're struggling. We have a mediocre product that used to be good. We're selling it at a loss, and we don't know where to turn. So what we have to do is realize that right in front of us, we have differentiation. Now, it may not mean we're superior. It means we're unique, we're different, we have a distinctiveness. Once we understand that and we're able to communicate it, to be able to sell it, then what we can do is launch it, first with our employees, but then to the world. It's the only way to go today with all of what's going on in technology.
Very interesting. Okay, so you've outlined a lot of benefits of differentiation. What exactly how does that translate in the world of branding? Like, is it trying to be eye-catching? Is it trying to be, I think you mentioned it doesn't have to be excellence. It's some unique characteristics, but how do you find that? How do you define that within brand?
Well, it's not how do we make ourselves look a certain way or how do we have a cool logo, because that's not differentiation. It's not even branding. A logo is not branding. It's a symbol, but it has nothing to do with who we are necessarily. What we do, Reed, is we go inside the company itself and we look for what they're doing that may be a unique differentiator. And we will literally spend hours upon hours, days upon days, trying to find a couple of things. Could be 3, could be 4 or 5 things. Once those are validated that, yes, these are actually unique, then what we do is we name them. But very, very often, it's not something that kind of looks a little strange. It's something that's valuable, that was created, could have been 100 years ago or 200 years ago. It's something that may take 1 or 2 extra steps or cost them a little bit extra money to do, but they're doing it because they think the product is better because of it. That's what we want to capture.
Okay. Well, let's go specific because a few interesting names that you've worked with came up. Harley-Davidson, Audi, and Macallan. So these are some brands that I think, they occupy kind of a position in our minds, like in our culture. What do you think it is common about those 3 brands that has helped them create that unique niche or unique position in the market?
I'll tell you one thing. If you look at 2 of the 3, which would be Harley Davidson and the Macallan Scotch brand. What they do that's interesting is their people live the brand. The Harley leaders ride the motorcycles. They go to the dealerships. They hang out with other Harley owners. The Macallan Scotch people, of course, love Macallan Scotch, but they produce testings and tastings worldwide so they can share the taste and celebrate it to thousands upon thousands of people. So they actually live their brand. Many, many years ago, I worked with a car dealer that was one of the top Ford car dealers in the nation. But what was interesting with him was he didn't drive a Ford. You know, he had a lot of money, so he drove a Ferrari. Nothing to do with Ford, but he drove a Ferrari. That's not how a Harley dealer is. That's not how the Macallan team is. They believe in the product and they believe in the brand. So that's something that they do that is outstanding, and it does differentiate them. When Harley was in trouble and the economy was failing about 2-3 decades ago, their ownership group and leadership group went out and met with dealers and owners nationwide. And that's when the Harley owner group was created, called HOG. That's those clubs that are all over the United States and now all over the world. That's what they do. They live the brand.
Interesting. So, okay, they've done that very effectively. And I know a lot of companies try to replicate this. I'm sure like direct competitors would drool over the potential to create these kinds of communities. What are their competitors that are less successful doing wrong typically?
Well, it's funny, Reed, the competitors of Harley did not want to do what Harley was doing because it was a hassle. They didn't want to do it. I mean, you got to go get on a motorcycle. And a lot of those leaders for these other companies were not motorcyclists. And then you got to go spend time with these people called dealers and customers. And they didn't want to do it. It was something that made Harley different. And my point is, if you were a different company out there selling motorcycles, you might have differentiators, but probably not that differentiator. You weren't going to be somebody that said, look, you become part of our family and we're part of your family when you purchase our product. Now, their competitors might have been far more engineering oriented. They may have been more focused on the technology of their product, and that's what they did and that's what they sold by. But that's what you underscored there is why you don't want to try to imitate your competitors, because you just can't live up to it.
Well, makes a ton of sense. So, emotional connection, I think, is a part of this, as you described. Why do you think that emotion plays such a part in this differentiation process? We've got a lot of people talking about the importance of more and more data and numbers and calculations and analytics. And emotion is so much more difficult to quantify. But why do you think it's still important for this differentiation process?
I think one thing that we can say as people is that we can feel whether or not a brand, a company, cares about us. We can feel whether or not we're an intrusion. So the emotion we feel is really important. One thing to share with our audience is that the experience you receive when you go into a store or into a dealership or even onto a website, that experience that you feel, if you're the consumer, it's the brand. It's what you call the brand. So you might say, okay, well, so what? Well, here's what's so what. You could have the best product in the world, but if the consumer goes to your site or to your location and it's a terrible experience, that consumer walks away and they don't say, I love the brand, but I hate the experience. They don't. They go, I hate the brand. I'll never buy the brand again. So we have to realize that's emotion. When we disenfranchise the people who are looking at our product and considering it, they take it personally. And that's emotion.
Okay. Well, a big part of that is, the employees living the brand and mapping that. You mentioned earlier in, the car ownership example you gave. How can a leader inspire this kind of loyalty or adherence to the vision that people at some of these clearly differentiated brands are doing? Like, how could a leader introduce this to his company?
Well, that is at the heart of what my book's about. The subtitle of my book, which is called The Power of Differentiation, is Win Hearts, Minds, and Market Share. And that's the order a leader has to do it in. You've got to win the hearts of your people. You got to let your people know, look, this is what we're doing. And you're really critical to this. And then you got to win their minds. They got to think, okay, wait a minute, this makes sense. This is something that's good. Now I understand why I'm doing this. Now I actually care why I'm doing this. And I care to do a good job. And when that happens, when people can actually be celebrated and celebrate that brand, then you win that client. Because that client knows it. You mentioned a few moments ago, emotion. That client can feel the emotion of the employee who feels they're part of that army that's going to go win the battle every day. And they can feel the emotion or lack thereof of the person who's just mailing it in. They don't care. They're just doing their job.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's the job of the leader, to answer your question, to instill how significant each of their people are and how they're playing a role in what we're doing, which is helping our clients.
Yeah, I love that. Like giving them a mission, an important task, and making them feel accountable for that. I think that's fantastic. We can't talk marketing, any aspect of business, without bringing up AI. As somebody that uses AI a lot, it helps tremendously. It speeds things up, but it can also be a little generic. What do you think? Do you see AI as helpful at all to this kind of differentiation process or brand building, or is it a hindrance?
I think AI can be a great help in allowing you to test ideas, push those ideas, get feedback from AI that is researched and is well thought through. I think where AI is not going to be helpful and could be detrimental is in identifying and communicating what your real language is from your company, who we really are, what is our lexicon, who are we as humans. And that's not something AI can do, but AI is great for initial creativity, for research. We use it all the time. I think it's a fantastic tool. It's only getting better. But keep in mind, and you mentioned this, if something is generic and it looks kind of blah and it's mediocre and it looks like something somebody else would say about your brand or somebody else's brand, it's no good. It doesn't mean anything. People will be able to tell that a mile away. So we have to always engage our conscience when we're looking at what AI is producing.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm sure you're approached by this commonly, just your brand, you consult with businesses, but when a business comes to you and says, I think my company's brand feels generic, where do you typically start? What's the first step? What do you break down first?
We have a process that is proprietary. So we go through 5 steps real quickly. What we do is we do a brand assessment. So we talk to humans, whether it's humans at that company or their customers or suppliers, people in the industry. We want to hear what they say about this brand, this company, the product, service. The next step is the one nobody does, and that is we go into the facility, generally in person. Sometimes it's a virtual visit, but most of the time it's in person, and we look for differentiation, the technical uniqueness. We call that a technical immersion. We get immersed in what they're doing. Once we do that, we come up with our recommendations, and we do what we call a jam session with the client. We bounce ideas off them, and we validate those very, very few but incredibly creative and critical differentiators. Then we do what most agencies do. We start to do the execution. Hey, let's come up with a name. Let's produce a website, et cetera. But then it comes to launching it, and we launch internally first. We launch to the most important people who are part of it. We let them know they're important and they're significant. And then we tell the world. That's the 5-step process.
I love it. I am definitely picking up on a common thread of really giving the internal stakeholders a key responsibility in this process. And I think that's fantastic. Can we talk a little bit about your book? Maybe I'll just ask, how there's so many business books and, there's, when you were creating this work, were you mindful of trying to be very different in itself? Was that a differentiation? Was that a key part of the process? Tell me about how this book came to be.
The book originally was written about 5 years ago, or started 5 years ago, and it was about how do you identify what's right in front of you that's unique, protect it, and then sell it. And I thought that's a pretty basic but interesting premise. I had a lot of stories of successful companies, and then COVID struck, and over 100 million Americans quit their job during a 1-year period. And it dawned on me that we need to differentiate our products, not just so we sell more, but so we win the hearts and minds of our employees. And that's what happened. And it became a book with greater depth and greater meaning. So all the stories that are success stories in the book about other people, because the book's not about me, it's about maybe 30, 40, 50 great men and women who led their companies to not only gain the market share, but to rally their people. And in some cases, rally their people for the first time in decades around what they did that was valuable. So we included those stories. The other thing is it's also a handbook. If you want to learn how to do a great jam session, we run it through. If you want to learn how we do our proprietary 5-step process, we explain it. We're an open book. We also share what technology can do to help you identify and promote your differentiation. So it's filled with a lot of interesting information.
Okay. Do you think these principles apply regardless of the size of the business? As I'm thinking about this, it's fairly easy to be different. I have a relatively small marketing agency. There's just a few of us. And when we've talked about what makes us different, it largely comes down to we're just describing ourselves, we're just describing like us as individuals and, we have our quirks, is the process greatly different between different sizes of companies?
It's not only not different, it's exactly the same, and it applies to a solopreneur. The thing we have to do if we're a small business is get out of this thing that, hey, look, I'm really special, or the 4 of us are really cool people and we're really neat, and that's why everybody buys from us. It's not why everybody buys from you. But there are approaches or focuses that a small team has that clients find very attractive. There might be the experience that small team delivers. We always do this, this, and that. And even though a lot of clients think it's strange, we always do this also. Well, those are unique. Those aren't, hey, look, we're a bunch of really cool people and everybody likes us. It's a lot more than that. It's something that has some meaning to it. Whether you're a solo person, many people have talked to me on this, and I've thought, I could do a version of this book where it's about personal branding, because that's what it's all about. I mean, you literally could go through the entire process that we went through with Harley Davidson, only do it for a solopreneur and go through what he or she is doing that makes them unique, different, name the product or service or process that they have, execute it, and then celebrate it with that small group that really loves them. It all works.
Very interesting. Yeah, that's fantastic. Are there, we mentioned a few like longstanding brands that, they've been around for a while. Are there any like next gen brands or brands that we're going to see grow based on their differentiation in the next few years? Any brands that stick out to you that way?
Well, I could name a lot of different brands we work with. I think there will be many healthcare brands or healthcare benefits brands that will be emerging because of the healthcare crisis that we're in, where it's very expensive. It's not the experience we want, so I see that happening. Old manufacturers that revitalize themselves, and all of a sudden, they're not that old anymore. They're actually kind of hip. They're futuristic. They understand what they're doing, and they are very, very vital to the future. So I see a wide range like that. I think it will not be primarily technology companies. I think you'll see some service companies and could be liquor, alcohol companies, others like that that are going to be coming into the forefront, only they're going to be thinking in a slightly different way, focus on what they do right and what they do best.
Wow, that is, exciting. The pain of healthcare costs is real. We're like right in the open enrollment period, and as a small business owner, very conscious of that. Right. So desperately looking for something different in that space. Yeah, I love it. So your book, The Power of Differentiation, can be found on Amazon. Is there anywhere else you'd point people to find that or reach out to you?
You can find our book on Amazon, as well as you can go to my website. You can see some links to that. So my website's barrylabov.com. My company's website, labov.com, will also have a link to the book. So I ask you to go there. Feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn as well. I'll respond to every inquiry, and I've been able to develop some great relationships with that.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Barry. This is tremendous to have you on the podcast. I feel like I've learned a lot, and definitely has made me think about, what do I need to do to differentiate? And I'm going to read your book. So really looking forward to this.
I appreciate it. And anybody that reads the book, first of all, I thank you, and feel free to send me a message on what you think, but also leave a review of it, because it's important for Amazon and their algorithm to see an honest review. And that would mean a lot to me as well.
Thank you so much, Barry. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Reed.
Want to stay ahead of what's actually working in marketing right now? Head over to MarketSurge.io and see how we're helping businesses grow smarter, faster, and louder. That's MarketSurge.io, because your next breakthrough shouldn't be a guess.